Hi everyone and welcome to our English lesson for today, last one of the week. How exciting. So we are going to be thinking about everything we have learned so far this week, and today is the day we try and retell the story of the Gruffalo. So let me share my PowerPoint with you and then we can have a look at our learning objective for today. So we're retelling the story of the Gruffalo, aren't we? But we want to be able to use a range of literary devices in our writing. So look, our learning objective is orange now because we are in our show stage of our learning. We are showing what we know. So remember, these literary devices, they are the things that we've learned so far this year to put in our writing, like our conjunctions and our apostrophes and our commas in the list, etc. So our success criteria are, first one, that we can use literary devices to create the appropriate effect. So that means we don't just use commas in a list any old place in our writing. We only do it when it's right to do so and it makes sense. And we would only use an expanded noun phrase, for example, when it's right to do so and it makes sense to describe that thing a bit more. Success criteria 2 is to use the appropriate punctuation for each literary device. So we need to remember if it's an exclamation, to use our exclamation mark. If it's an apostrophe, to use the correct punctuation mark. And lastly, once we've written it, we're going to have a look to see and check and identify where we have used these different literary devices in our writing. So, what are we trying to include? In a second, I'd like you to pause the video and try and remember all the different things we've learnt so far this year in our writing that we want to try and use in our Gruffalo retelling. Off you go, pause the video. How many can you think of? Right, let's see how many you got. So we need to include expanded noun phrases. So using adjectives describing words to describe nouns. So for example, the deep, dark wood. Fantastic. Next one is statements. So remember, these are sentences that are facts or ideas and they end with a full stop. Questions. Remember, these are when a sentence is asking someone something and expecting a reply, and they have a question mark at the end. Exclamations. Now, these, if you remember, are sentences with strong emotion in, and they end with an exclamation mark. Then we've got commands. Do you remember, these are sentences where they are asking or telling someone to do something. Then we've got conjunctions. We've got two types, haven't we? Our coordinating conjunctions, and, but, and so, and our subordinating conjunctions, if, when, that, and because. And we use those to add extra information to our sentences to make them more exciting. We also need to try and include apostrophes. Do you remember, they are used for contraction, and we've got two words and we push them together to make one word, or for possession, to show when something belongs to somebody. And finally, commas in a list. So we use these, don't we, when we've listed some items in our story or in our writing, and we want to separate these items with a comma, except for the last two items where we use the word and. So, when you write your Gruffalo story, I would like you to try and include as many of these as you can. Now, you might have noticed that the Gruffalo is a rhyming story. You don't need to worry about making your retelling of the story rhyme. You just need to think about making sure you follow your story map to include all the events in the right order and use your own words to retell the story. So I'm going to show you my beginning of my story so you can see what I mean. Here's mine. There once was a grey sweet mouse who was gallivanting through the thick leafy wood. He came across a mischievous looking fox. Where are you going? The fox asked the mouse. I'm having lunch with a Gruffalo, replied the mouse. How terribly scary, the fox exclaimed. Tell me more about this Gruffalo, asked the fox. Don't you know, said the mouse. He has long pointy tusks, sharp claws, and square sticky out teeth. I'm off, shouted Fox. When Fox had ran away, the mouse bumped into an owl. And then I would carry on my story. So can you see how I'm telling the same story as the Gruffalo, but I'm not copying it, I'm rewriting it in my own words. So I'd like you to pause the video now and have a go at writing your own version of the Gruffalo, trying to include all or as many of these things as you can. Off you go. Right, welcome back. Well done. Okay, now the next bit I would like you to do only if you think you've got time to do so. So this is our last success criteria. So this is just something a little bit more challenging for us to do if we want to. So if you think you're finished and you'd like to stop there for today, that's absolutely fine. But if you'd like to challenge yourself a bit more, keep listening. So I would like us to achieve our third success criteria by trying to identify or find where we have used our different literary devices. So let's have a look at mine. Can you see? I have managed to find in my writing lots of examples of our literary devices. And I've underlined them all in a different colour using a neat wiggly line. So here, grey, sweet, mouse is an expanded noun phrase, isn't it? I've got two adjectives, grey and sweet, describing my noun, which is the mouse. So I've underlined that in red and I've put a little arrow up and neatly written expanded noun phrase. You can see here, where are you going? Underline that in blue and drawn an arrow to show that is a question. This is asking someone something and it ends in a question mark. Let's have a look at, oh look here, underlined in yellow, the word don't. Drawn an arrow from there and written that that's where I've used an apostrophe because I can see I've shortened the words do and not to the word don't. So your last task for today that I'd like you to do is to have a look and see if you can find in your writing how many of the different literary devices you have used. Pause the video now and off you go. Well done if you decided to challenge yourself, that's super. The last thing I'd like you to do if you've got time is to have a quick reflection. You might want to do this just using your words by talking to somebody, or you might want to write it down. But I want you to think about your story of the Gruffalo and think about what you have done really well. How many of those literary devices did you use? And now you've recognised what you've done well, how do you think you could use that in the future? So let's see my example just to help you. I have used a range of literary devices in my writing, such as expanded noun phrases and questions. This has made my writing more exciting to read, and it makes it more like Julia Donaldson's. When we are back at school, I am going to make sure I use all these things in my writing so that my writing is always the best it can be. So can you see I've said what I've done well here by recognising I've used lots of literary devices. And I'm saying how I'm going to use that in the future by saying that I'm going to make sure I use these when we're back at school all the time, even if we're learning about something different. So that's the last thing. I'd like you to do a little reflection. Either you can say it out loud, maybe you could get an adult to write it for you, or you could video yourself doing it. Or if you think you've got the strength in your hand to write it down, that would be super, and then you can send it through to your teachers. Well done, everyone. I know I can't wait, and I'm sure Mrs. Millett and Mrs. Jones can't wait to read your alternatives, not your alternative, that was our last experience, to read your retellings of the Gruffalo story. And we're going to post some amazing, outstanding ones on the class celebration page. Well done, and have a wonderful weekend. Who knows, maybe you'll spot a Gruffalo on your walk this weekend. Bye.